Heck, didn't look at my hair, but after my nap, I look like crap. Yep, we got here. What do we got? 6:59. We'll give it a few minutes until we hit our 7:02 mark, and then we'll get going. Free marijuana information. Actually, mentioning that, DJ Josh, we just posted on our Facebook a little while ago, earlier today. There is an event here in Charleston at one of the local pub restaurants called the Bohemian Bull. They are doing a 420 market on Saturday, April 16th, promoting Wicked Weed Brewing, and actually one of the CBD shops is going to be there, and live music. I don't know what other vendors they're having. I happened to find out about it because my wife and I went there for brunch the other day, and I saw a big poster sign on the wall talking about it. So I gave him one of my cards and I said, you know, NORML would like to be here and give away some free marijuana information. And he contacted me back today and said, sure, you're welcome to come on down, and just send us your logo, send us your social media handles that we can kind of promote it. So we are doing that. If you have a spot up in Columbia that maybe you'd like to try and make the same offer, let me know. And I know you've got some brochures left. I don't know how many. I did just order in 1,500 of them in preparation for our events coming up. We are also going to be, and it hasn't been announced yet, but we're also setting up an information booth at the Marion Square Park in downtown Charleston on Saturday, April 23rd. That's going to be a collaboration between ourselves and the ACLU of South Carolina, and that's going to be kicking off a new program that we're going to kind of be starting to work on here in Charleston. All right, I rambled right on into 7:03, so I guess I better quick find my little document so I can do the disclaimer. Recent, and we will see what I got going on here. Oh, I have an app on my phone which connects to my watch from the South Carolina State House. So they are constantly letting me know when the Senate sessions are starting and ending, and when they are House sessions are starting and ending. And I just got a buzz on here. The Senate session for this evening has ended, and they will reconvene tomorrow at 11 a.m. case you wanted to know that. Anyway, let me get this little info out of my way and we will kind of get kicking here. I want to start by welcoming everybody to the conversation. This is the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. And I'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us here on the Zoom call. Also, anybody who might be joining us and watching live on our YouTube channel, and also welcome to anybody who might be viewing this as a recording later on our YouTube channel. When I mention YouTube, I always like to point out that during the meetings, we are not actually monitoring the live stream there. So if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down below off to the side, wherever your device leaves comments. And once YouTube is done rendering the video, usually within about 24 hours, we will come back and visit the channel and see if we can address any questions and comments or concerns that you have. With that said, let's get going here. We'll start with our disclaimer that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Go ahead and close that up. And again, welcome to everybody that's here on the phone call with me tonight. Wasn't exactly sure what we were going to discuss tonight. I kind of left it open-ended to see if some other things were coming up. Actually, one of our regular participants followers had suggested that I reach out to Nancy Mace and see if she wants to join us on a call and talk about the State Reform Act. I didn't hear back from Nancy yet this week, but I got a pretty good feeling she will join us some evening in the near future. I am in her district. I am one of her constituents, and she's been very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very communicative with us, very supportive of cannabis, as you know, by her sponsoring that bill. Spam. And so I think she would probably be willing to come on. As a matter of fact, the little story I like to tell is a few months before her announcement, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months before her announcement, sometime late last year, probably just after Joe's announcement, I happened to go to a workshop meeting roundtable in downtown Charleston. And Nancy was one of the participants in that roundtable. And after the event sort of broke up, I left the room. I'm starting to wander through the front lobby of the hotel, trying to find a restroom before I headed on home. And somebody points that it was up those stairs over there and pointed to where it was. As I look up the stairs, there's Nancy being interviewed by a television reporter. And so I kind of went up and snuck around behind the reporter and up past her security. She had security with her. I think that was recently after her home was vandalized. So there's a police officer there escorting her around. And as I came back out of the restroom, I just kind of stood back and a little bit behind the cop so I wouldn't interfere, and just sort of waited and watched because I didn't want to walk by again and be an annoyance or be disruptive, although I really wasn't being disruptive. And I'm kind of glad I did wait, because as they did finish up the interview, I started working my way down the steps and was going to walk past them. And at that, Nancy stops me and says, "Hey, Scott, I want you to meet my assistant." I forget what his name was now, and I don't think I have his card in front of me on the table. Do I? Her district director. There we go. Matt Nichols. And so I happened to stop and chat with Matt a little bit, and Matt sort of, he didn't tell me about what was going on with the State Reform Act, but sort of alluded to Nancy had some marijuana information, marijuana related information coming out in the not too distant future. And when I did see the announcement of the State Reform Act, I all of a sudden realized what he was talking about. So yes, she knows who I am. She's been cordial and talked with me, so I think we have a good chance of having her on the call. But with that said, I wasn't sure if it was going to happen this week, so I sort of drug my feet a little bit, waiting to see if I heard back. and instead decided to go with information that was recently shared by National that 50 years ago today, which was yesterday, Congress's own expert commission demanded they repeal marijuana prohibition. I'm going to go ahead and grab this link for the blog post or the post that they put out on this, and then drop it here in the chat. And you'll also find on there at the bottom of that a link to a YouTube video of Keith Stroke, the founder of NORML, talking with Eric Altieri, who is the executive director, and telling his story or his version of the story of those times. Matter of fact, I had the opportunity to join in on a national chapters call with National late last week. I think it was Thursday, and Keith was on. It's really, to me, it's sort of one of those, to me, sort of brush with greatness kind of thing. I'm not usually starstruck by celebrity and things like that. But to be able to sit in the same Zoom call with Keith, as a matter of fact, he's responded to emails with me from National when I'm writing in a National. Most recently, I was trying to find some contact info for Willie Nelson because he's going to be up in the Greenville area, Simpsonville area, I believe it is, the 24th of April. And I was hoping to be able to set up a booth outside the event space near the entrance that we could hand out some free marijuana information there. Yes, let me go ahead and get a link. Ayn is asking if I have a link for the event that I mentioned earlier at, it's called Bohemian Bull. And their event is going to be, actually, I better find it on their Facebook page because I don't think they had the event. Oh, there it is. Let me click on that there. I'll share this link out with everyone. And basically what this event is, the 420 market with Wicked Weed Brewing at the Bohemian Bull restaurant and bar. They'll be featuring 4 Wicked Weed Brewing beers, including the beer of the month, Dr. Dank Daily Haze IPA, 10 plus local vendors. Charleston Hemp Collective will have their mobile dispensary there, live music. And what, live t-shirt printing from Gumbo Design, raffles and giveaways. Mark your calendar. So if you're in the Charleston area or not too far away, definitely come on out and see us there. They say we'll have at least a table. I don't know if we'll do a full booth. I'm not sure of the space constraints at the moment, but we'll definitely be tabling, have our brochures, probably have a whole bunch of postcards to mail out to your legislators and that kind of fun stuff. And talking about that, I do want to share one other little tidbit before we get into talking about what we were talking about. I just have to go find it now. There it is. I just heard earlier today that the House 3M committee has scheduled a hearing for S-150, the Compassionate Care Act. I went to the calendar and found that that is scheduled for March 31st, which is next Thursday at 9 a.m. So I put together an action alert today to please go out and contact the members of the 3M committee. There are 18 of them. When you go and click on this link, you're going to actually send an email to all 18 of them, one each. We've had a pretty good response so far today. National shared the link to this for us on their email list as well. It looks like we have 69 people sent 18 different emails for a total of 1,206 emails sent today to the 18 members on that committee. Share that link out if you would, or share the post from our Facebook page. Actually, it's also posted on our Twitter and YouTube, and try and get everybody that you know that supports cannabis to urge the 3M committee to vote this positively out of committee and to the House floor. Okay, that's a little enough of that plug at the moment, but yes, it's important info. Joey, I'm glad to see you that you're here with us. I was just telling the crowd that I was a little bit late on posting what we were going to discuss tonight because I was trying to reach out to Nancy Mason, see if she was interested in joining us. And we haven't heard back from her yet, but we are anticipating on hearing from her in not too distant future, and maybe we'll have her on in the next couple of weeks. All right, so I'm going to sort of backtrack a little bit. I had shared the link with you all on the 50th anniversary of the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse's report called Marijuana, a Signal of Misunderstanding. I was hoping to have a copy of that report today with me. I ordered one off of Amazon, I want to say about a week ago. And usually with Amazon, I mean, you get this magic next day shipping so often, but this item is taking a little bit longer to receive. And I don't think it's scheduled to be here any earlier than tomorrow. Last I checked on tracking. But it is out there and available on Amazon if you are interested in finding Marijuana, a Signal of Misunderstanding. I think it's also out on eBay. Be careful though. I know one of the versions I saw on eBay, they're all, of course, used copies. And so some of them are a little bit rougher shaped than others. But I'm going to go grab that link here. If you want to actually see the entire report online, you can see it here. It's broken up into chapters, I believe it looks like on this particular document. Excuse me. But the first link that I shared with you, and again, I'll share it one more time, the national blog post gives a pretty nice short brief on it. And basically this report came out on March 22nd, 1972. At that time, I was 14 years old, so it didn't make big impact to me at the point. I mean, yes, I had consumed cannabis at that point, but I wasn't watching the news. I wasn't watching, these kind of reports. And what's interesting about it is that video link I shared with you of Keith Strope talking about that day. He remembers it rather well and mentions how it was a pretty hot topic, and a lot of the news stations carried it. And the supporters from NORML actually got a good bit of airtime on some of those news reports. So that to me is very interesting. Back at that time when the polling was done, I was just listening to who was doing polling. I don't know if it was Pew Research or whatever, but at that time, support for legalization of marijuana was roughly about 12% of the voting population, or of the population, as compared to today, where that number is roughly 70% for full legalization. So it's taken 50 years to gain 58%. Am I counting right? Yeah, 58%. Of the population's favor, and that number seems to be growing on a daily basis or on a regular basis. I hear a lot from our supporters and commenters that, oh, it's those old people that are holding it up, and I want to enter myself in that old people kind of category. Now, maybe old people's a little older than I don't know, but I mean, they aren't inaccurate about it in some cases, because at that time, propaganda started getting, even uh, more intent. A lot of people, even I would say a lot younger than me, were learning in their drug classes in school, which ironically I never took any of those. I happened to get kicked out of one school before they gave drug classes, and I got to the next school after they gave the drug classes. So I've never taken drug classes in any school, and they were going on back in the 70s. They were having drug classes, as probably instigated by the Controlled Substances Act. So maybe I just have to blame it on being a little bit unruly in school and getting booted out for never having proper drug education. I had to learn about marijuana on the streets. Funny thing about it is, I think I learned more useful information and more pertinent information and more facts on the street than they were sharing in schools' drug classes. Now, let me kind of backtrack here just a little bit. At that time, when they were creating the commission, which is the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse, also known to many as the Schaefer Commission, then President Nixon, he appointed, handpicked 9 of the members of the commission. I believe there's a total of 13 members. He handpicked 9 of them, including commission's chair, Raymond P. Schaefer, then governor of Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I kind of knew some of that information when I was younger, but I didn't know he was part of this commission. Interesting to this is if you go and listen to the video on YouTube later on, Keith talks a little bit about Raymond Schaefer and how Governor Schaefer at the time had 3 or 4 kids, and he believes at least a couple of his kids consumed marijuana. And so he was more sympathetic to the marijuana cause than probably Nixon realized when appointing him as the chair of this commission. Members investigated the issue for 2 years prior to reaching their conclusions. And the committee, when they came back, rebuked the claims that cannabis was a highly dangerous substance worthy of criminal prohibition. Rather, it determined that the criminal law was too harsh of a tool to apply to personal possession, even in an effort to discourage use. It implies an overwhelming indictment for the behavior which we believe is not appropriate. The actual and potential harm of use of the drug is not great enough to justify intrusion by a criminal law into private behavior, a step which our society takes only with the greatest reluctance. And that is a quote from their report. So therefore, they recommended that the possession of marijuana for personal use no longer be an offense, and that the casual distribution of small amounts of marijuana for no or little remuneration, and it says no remuneration or insignificant remuneration, no longer be an offense. Now, the way Keith describes this in the video, he says back at the time, people would get their bag of weed, and then they would share it with friends, maybe, selling them a couple of quarter ounce here, there, that kind of stuff for relatively little money. Now, again, this is 1972, where you could get a 4-finger ounce for about $20 of some Mexican crap weed. If you're paying $30, you're probably getting Panama Red and Acapulco Gold. Josh, that's not what you learned in Dare. Of course, proper government propaganda isn't going to teach you the truth. But anyway, that's kind of what I remember back in those days is, people say, what's a 4-finger ounce? Well, you hold your hand up next to a baggie, and that baggie was not flattened out. That was a big puffy bag of about that size for roughly $20. Like I said, if you're paying 25 or 30, we're probably getting some really good weed. Of course, prices started going up from there to where they are today. And quality's kind of gone up, I must admit. So I still think prices are too high today, even for the good quality of cannabis. Anyhow, that's my side commentary on that. But I found that very interesting, especially when Keith was describing it and talking about it on that video. And part of some of what he's talked about is there had been a gathering, a meeting party kind of thing that was, you'll have to listen to the video to get more of the details on it, but that the commission members were there, and that a lot of the supporters that Keith was involved with were there. And as he puts it, it was probably the first time that many of these commission members ever actually saw somebody consuming marijuana. And yeah, there was probably alcohol there too, because why wouldn't there be? And the response basically was that, you know, they saw people smoking cannabis, and geez, it didn't look like they were going out of their minds. They looked like they were having a good time and enjoying themselves. And, you know, but it wasn't like that, as described as reefer madness type thing. Now, I found that really interesting because I don't think I realized the part about the insignificant or no remuneration of small amounts of marijuana being traded or sold, making that again a non-offense in there, or should be a non-offense. So today, 31 states and the District of Columbia have enacted legislation either legalizing or decriminalizing the possession of marijuana for adults. And another quote, the commission's recommendation to end marijuana possession arrests was totally unexpected at the time, with most observers anticipating the commission to reinforce Nixon's exaggerated fears of marijuana and to continue to support criminal prohibition. The report was truly groundbreaking then, and it has stood the test of time and remains pertinent now. Now, this is from the founder, Keith Stroop, who testified on behalf of NORML in several meetings held by the National Commission prior to publication of this report. Stroop noted that since the commission initially made its recommendation, an estimated 30 million Americans have been arrested for violating state and federal marijuana laws. Over 80% of those arrested over the past 5 decades were prosecuted for offenses related to the personal possession and use of cannabis, and various activities that the commission demanded to be decriminalized. Yeah, 30 million people. And if you happen to ever see a chart, I follow a page on YouTube called Delete Laws, LAWZ, all one word, DELTE, LAWZ. I believe he also has a Facebook page, and he has a graph showing a number of things, but one of the things is the growth of the industrial prison complex in our nation, and how after Nixon and the Controlled Substances Act, that curve really started climbing. After Reagan and during the Reagan administration, it peaked even more, and all presidents ever since have pretty much helped that industrial prison complex grow in huge numbers. Now that the land of the free and the home of the brave has more people in prison than any other country in the world. Now, Morgan Fox, who's NORML's political director, added the fact that this report was ignored by the federal government for over half a century, while countless individuals' lives and entire communities were upended and marginalized by misguided cannabis prohibition policies, is a stain on our country, but it doesn't have to continue, he says. The Congress now has an opportunity to maintain momentum for comprehensive reform that is centered on repairing these harms, and the American people deserve to know that their lawmakers stand up where their lawmakers stand on this issue. Side note on that, I have been seeing a lot on Facebook lately with politicians here in the state announcing that they've officially filed for their campaigns. Many of them, we've known they've been campaigning for a while. Example again, Joe Cunningham, which we know he's been campaigning for governor since mid last year, made his marijuana policy announcement, I want to say June or July last year. And then we had him on our program not long after talking about that. But I think it was just today or maybe yesterday that I saw that he has officially filed as a candidate. So I don't know if there's like a official start time to file, if it was like earlier this week or something, but all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of legislators filing. So with that, what I've been doing is trying to send them a link to our candidate questionnaire and ask, and first off, informing them that, voters want to know your position on marijuana policy. Could you please complete the questionnaire? And so far, I haven't had a great response to it, but there's actually a little bit of time to kind of wait because there's still, as these candidates are announcing and officially filing, the group that loads the candidates into our Action Network page, and what was the other one? But they're still, and our vote, Smoke the Vote Guide, not our Action Network page. Our Smoke the Vote Guide's actually operated by a third party, and they are just gathering this information now and who's filing officially. And so they'll be aggregating that information into the Smoke the Vote Guide, at which point I will then go in and attach the responses or replies from any of the candidates to their link. And hopefully by the time the primaries roll around in June, primary date, South Carolina is June 11th this year, with runoffs on June 28th. So, definitely a couple of weeks beforehand, we hope to have as much of that information compiled into the Smoke the Vote Guide for voters to be able to look at and hopefully make their voting decisions. So where was I here? Congress has the opportunity now to maintain this momentum. Yeah, I talked about that. Centered on repairing these harms, and the American people deserve to know where their lawmakers stand. I did mention that House leadership had moved to hold a floor vote immediately on the Marijuana Opportunity Act and Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. I'm sorry, the House leadership should move to do this. The Biden administration should also immediately follow through on the president's campaign promises to offer pardons and expungement for people convicted of nonviolent federal marijuana offenses. So again, what I'm going to do is share the link to the video for you, just to make sure that you have it there. It's about a 44-minute video. It goes, that didn't copyright. It definitely goes into a lot more informative detail than I can share with you because Keith's kind of talking from personal experience. And some of it is kind of interesting, and again, not in the little report that I was just reading you to you. I also, I know that NORML says here they're asking the House to move the MORE Act forward. I do believe there is a hearing scheduled for Nancy Mace's States Reform Act. I don't have a date on when that's scheduled, but I know she was told that there would be a hearing coming up on that. I'm going to quick look. All right, this report came out March 3rd, and the Representative Mace mentioned in an interview that she's receiving assurances that Democratic leaders would be holding a hearing on her bill, but asked whether this was contingent on a yes vote for separate legalization bill. On Nadler's MORE Act, the Congresswoman said there was no quid pro quo. So, as you know, from my position, I don't care if it's the MORE Act or the hopefully soon to be announced Cannabis Opportunity and Administration and Opportunity Act, or if it's the States Reform Act. They are all descheduling bills. And all three of them include some sort of reparative justice language in there. And to be quite honest with you, from what I've read of them, Representative Mace's bill, I believe the numbers as far as taxes go, or the lowest numbers of the three legislative bills. Although many of you may already know that Representative Mace is up for re-election this session. She has a Republican candidate running against her in the primaries. I know of one Democratic candidate that will be running against in whoever wins the primaries in the generals in November. I've tried to reach out to both Katie Arrington and to Dr. Annie, whatever her name is, I forget right now, about their marijuana policy their marijuana policies, and would they fill out our candidate guide questionnaire. And I have not gotten a response from either of them yet. Dr. Annie Andrews, that's the other one. So anyway, I thought that was sort of interesting news. Many of us have known about this Schaefer Commission report. I'm not used to calling it the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse, but I've always called it the Schaefer Commission report. Some of us have known about that. Some of us may not have or have forgotten about it. But as this blog post mentions, it is still pertinent today, and the findings are still ring pretty true. Their recommendation to just decriminalize, simple possession and small amounts of transfer. If you listen to the video, were somewhat initially disappointing to activists back at the time, but after they sort of let it settle in a bit, they were okay with it and clearly understood that in the decades preceding, there was never any discussion of decriminalization, and so that was a positive step forward. All right, I don't think I have a whole lot to follow up on this particular article, so I'm going to kind of open it up for any questions out there, comments from our participants. If anybody has anything they want to either comment in the chat or turn on your mic and chime in, you're welcome to. 180 today for a good one. I still haven't found it quite that low. Matter of fact, I've seen quite a bit in this local area at around $350. So I don't know what the going rate is in your community. I know from when I moved here, prices have definitely dropped. There was a point up in Pennsylvania, I was paying about $400 an ounce for decent quality, and I'm not even saying top quality. And those prices have definitely come down over the years. But for me to get even close to the 180 per ounce, I'd probably have to buy a quarter pound at a time. That's kind of my input on it. $240 to $300 for good medical in Florida. That could maybe make sense why, if anyone's coming in, they want to make a little profit for, numbers above that. I don't know where it's coming in from or things like that. And I really highly doubt that what comes into the state is coming from too many medical programs. I could be mistaken on that because I just don't know the black market. And that's where, of course, I believe that simple possession should be legalized, and small amounts, and they should, like they want to do in DC, is somehow build a retail market system so people aren't having to buy it off the streets, and supporting the black market. What was the one thing I recently read? And in an illegal market, it's the cartels that control the marketplace. And do our legislators really want the cartels controlling cannabis distribution in our state or our nation? I would certainly hope not, but by keeping it illegal the way they are, that's exactly what they're doing. And that's again partly why we are pushing for decrim in the state. We're starting small, well, I don't want to say small, we're starting in Charleston. We're starting with one municipality, the largest by population in the state, and also a very popular tourist destination. I keep sort of hearing the phrase, Charleston, come on vacation, go home on probation. I don't know how accurate that is with some of the tourists, because of course we know that City of Charleston police target people of color more than they do white folks. And again, I don't know the mix of population that comes to visit us as tourists, but wouldn't that kind of suck? You come to Charleston, you want to have a nice little vacation, maybe spend some time on the beach, maybe do some fine dining, shop at the market, and you come from a legal state or even a medically legal state, and you happen to have some of your medicine or some of your supplies with you, and next thing you know, you're going home on probation. That would suck. And probably not necessarily good for the tourist industry. Team home grow. Oh my goodness, I gotta tell you, that would be, of course, we're disappointed that the medical bill that's moving its way through the legislature doesn't include flower at all or home grow. Those are two, in my opinion, and National's opinion, two very important aspects of a patient-centric medical marijuana cannabis program, medical cannabis program. I'm actually going to share that particular fact sheet with you because I think that's a good one. Core attributes of a patient-centric medical cannabis program. And the bullet points right at the top, and NORML contends that an effective patient-centric evidence-based medical cannabis program must include the following core tenets: access to whole plant cannabis, limited taxes and fees, wide latitude for doctors to decide treatment regimes, personal cultivation rights, employment protections, and other reasonable civil statutory precautions. So those are the bullet points in that particular fact sheet that I shared with you, but it does definitely go into more detail on each of those bullet points as you scroll through it. And I gotta admit, that's why my enthusiasm for S-150, the Compassionate Care Act, has waned over the past few weeks. Is the last count, I think 71 amendments to the bill. The whopping 11 qualifying conditions. It was the worst cannabis medical cannabis program to begin with when it was introduced, and it's gotten worse. Let me go quick read comments here from Kyle. Yeah, and I see these kind of numbers, and I mean, I'm not sure how they pan out. I've never been a good grower, but then again, I've never had good facilities to either try and grow indoors, and I've never really tried growing outdoors. So I don't know if 6 would be the right number. I'd get these little scrawny things. 6 would never do the trick. But I have seen people that can grow rather well, and I think in the right conditions, yes, 6 might be 6 maturing flowering plants at a time. I don't think that should include your clones or your vegging plants. I could almost see if it was specified 6 flowering plants and non-flowering and clones, making making up more than that number 6. Good point Kyle makes is that, if you have the high yielding strains like Blue Dream, especially using, let's say, hydroponic methods, you can get a lot. And I believe that. I mean, like I said, I think with good growers, I support home grow. I just don't think I've ever been the right person to do the growing. I've seen people who grow so much better than I can. I like working in my garden, but growing vegetables and things like that. But as far as, hydroponic indoor grows, I've never had experience with that. I mean, I got to admit, when I did try it, I was using like fluorescent lights. I did try some with the halogen type lighting. And of course, then the heat's an issue, air circulation's an issue. There's just a lot involved with keeping your heat and humidity and things like that under control. All right. Yeah, I think with the proper conditions, that could actually absolutely be a fair number. Excuse me, when am I going to take off this jacket? Enough with looking business-like. So anyway, that's a little bit of my thought on those things outside of what we were talking about originally. Uh-oh. Bear with me a second. Okay, hopefully that was it. I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about on the subject. Like I say, I do recommend you go out and listen to Keith's on the video. I do like, how he mentions in that this commission report is still pertinent today. And I think it's really telling that this report came out in 1972, 50 years ago, and that it has been ignored by legislators in Congress and the president for 5 decades now. And it's really time that they start listening to the facts and stop with the propaganda. And let's get this scheduled at a federal level. And, let's move toward at least decriminalization here in South Carolina. I don't know a whole lot about storage facilities and things like that. I do know a little bit. I know there's like a use store it kind of village where I moved from, and my neighbors happened to work there. I don't think they managed it for the owners. And every now and again, when they would either need a break or need some time off, they would say, "Hey, Scott, you want to go up and manage the storage facility for us for the day?" And basically, I would just deal with some customers coming in and out, either making repayments or buying boxes and tape and stuff like that. And I do know that particular facility, you were not, you had one light bulb, I think, in the middle, and you were not allowed to tap off their electricity and things like that. And I believe that's kind of the concept on most of them. Doesn't mean people don't. Somehow or another have power within those, but I think a rented facility would be a little risky. I don't know. And again, it could be different out west.
I just think that would be a cool business model, instead of, just the light in the storage room, have electrical outlets, have a in-floor drain, water supply, and then rent the room for that reason, of course, legally.
That's interesting. Now that you put it that way, yeah, I could almost see, your grow room rentals kind of thing, and have them basically having properly wired, legally properly wired, giving a water supply.
Have people there to help you out.
Yeah, staff that might know and be able to help. Instead of selling packing tape and boxes at the office, you're selling fertilizer and maybe things to help control your mildew, white fly, whatever, diseases or something like that, and having some good information for you to be able to help. That would be a fun business plan, I gotta tell you. Yeah, I think about that from time to time because I often have people say, why are you doing this? Why are you fighting for legalization or decriminalization? What is your end game? What's your plan? And many of these people tell me, I want to open a dispensary. I want to do this. I've never really thought about it because the way I kind of look at it, good example here in South Carolina, they passed the medical bill. There still needs to be advocacy to make that bill better. Get decriminalization. We're still going to have advocacy to improve on whatever that decriminalization may be, or even move that into full legalization, recreational use. And okay, so then when you get recreational use legalized, well, now you've got to start looking at how you can effectively get that implemented and how to make a good program for the consumer. Because again, we are a consumer advocacy group. We are not necessarily a business advocacy group, but we're not a business advocacy group. We are always looking at it from the civil rights, civil liberties of the consumer angle. And so there's a long road to go. And unfortunately, my desire to kind of do that does not put anything in my pocket, and probably to the dismay of my wife. I wish there was a way I could kind of get into it, because I don't really want to become a paid lobbyist per se. I have thought maybe of getting into politics myself and trying to fight it from within. But I don't know if anybody would vote for me. Or I don't think I would get enough votes, let me put it that way. But that's probably, if I had an end game, it might be to get into politics and sort of affect change that way. Yeah, the one I was at was You Store It Village. You could have You Grow It Village. I like that. And use U-Haul trucks to transport. You haul it. Talking about that kind of stuff just sort of kicked off another thing real quick, thinking about the Safe Banking Act. I saw a recent report by, I don't even know. Let me see if I can find it on our Facebook page. Basically talking about how the one article was bad guys dressing up as cops and robbing marijuana dispensaries and things like that. Let's see if I could find the story, if I shared it. I may not have shared that story. And then, oh, maybe I shared it on my personal page. Let me look there. I don't see it. But anyway, it was a news story about how, thieves were dressing up in police uniforms and robbing marijuana dispensaries. And the one thing that makes, and so I started doing a little bit of looking into it and found a pretty interesting article on why are marijuana dispensaries becoming such a target for thieves. And the main reason is they are a cash business, because they don't have access to safe banking. They have to do everything cash. You can't come in and pay with your credit card or debit card. They can't take that money and put it into their bank account that way, because they're not allowed to use banks. So they are a very cash heavy industry. They have to actually hire armored guard transport trucks to transport their taxes to the government, to pay their taxes in cash, because they can't write them a check. They can't make an electronic transfer. And so, yes, I like the way you put it. Actually, I will go find this one other link real quick to share with you, because I can't do it from that page. One of the auditors that I follow, he goes by the name James Friedman. And he shared a video just the other day. I want to go grab this one. Let me go find it. Oh, come on, James, where is this one? Basically, it was a video about people dress up as police to rob places because police are legally allowed to rob places. Ah, there it is. All right, let me go share this link with you. I thought this was a pretty entertaining one. And so, yeah, I mean, a dispensary owner or whatever sees law enforcement coming in, they're not going to fight back. They'd rather not get killed by the police, which is a very good possibility if you resist arrest. And if these people come in wearing the same costumes that people that are allowed to rob you wear, yeah, they're gonna sort of stand down. They're not gonna fight. And if you get a chance to watch that one, that's only about a 4 minute or so, 4 minutes and 19 seconds, just a second short. But it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting commentary, should I say. Private criminals are catching on to the government's criminal ways and impersonating them. So all the more reason to pass the Safe Banking Act, let these businesses have a safe way to transfer their funds to their bank accounts or to pay their taxes or that kind of thing. Because having all that cash laying around is dangerous, and it probably dangerous. I haven't heard a lot of reports about it, but it's probably dangerous to the people that are on their way to the dispensary to go and get their product, because they have to have cash on hand. So they're walking around with all this cash in their pockets to go do their shopping, or walking out of there with their product and getting robbed by people that would rather not pay for it. It really needs to be mitigate, and the best way to mitigate those things is to allow people to use banking. Kyle says that he thinks if a percentage of the tax revenue is going to law enforcement, then law enforcement should be protecting those businesses now. If they're robbed, the police will probably come and take a report. But I kind of stand by the saying that when seconds count, police are only minutes away. They don't generally prevent crime. They show up after the fact, they take reports, they might look into it and investigate it, but they do not prevent crime. Because they can't be everywhere all the time is one thing, but it's just kind of the way it is. I saw a local person here complaining that their second car was stolen since they've moved to South Carolina. 2 cars have been stolen. And we see quite a bit of it in our local social media stuff in the area, that a lot of vehicles seem to be stolen from the Charleston area. I have a feeling it's because we're a port community, and a lot of these vehicles are just driven into containers and shipped off to Abu Dhabi or wherever they go to. And a lot of them do go over to those countries. Now Josh is saying he does use his credit card at TrueLeave in Florida. I don't know how Florida's set up. I know I saw another report recently where there was like an ATM type machine in a dispensary, but it actually didn't give you out money. It gave you like a receipt to give money to them, so you weren't actually holding cash, and you're sort of and that the powers that be are trying to come down on them for that.
I can tell you how it works.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I can tell you how it works.
Okay.
Basically you go in there and pay. They run it like an ATM transaction. So if my package was $86. They have to run it for 100. They can't give me any money back, but they put the remainder as a credit on my account.
Okay, interesting. But they're running it as an ATM as if they're getting, as if you're getting money from an ATM and giving it to them.
That's correct.
But, and again, they won't give you cash back, but they'll give you credit for anything over and above what you actually spent, which is fair in a way. That you're not losing that additional amount. I think I did hear something about that. They can't give you change on that kind of thing. And yeah, what I think the report I read is they're going to try and start cracking down on those type of ATM type transactions. Because they're not supposed to be using banking or something. I don't know exactly how it all, like I said, you gave me a pretty good explanation there, but it's challenging. And it really, like I say, if they would pass the Safe Banking Act, I think that would resolve a lot of issues. Just a good example. Two examples I'll give you. One, when I first founded Low Country NORML before we converted to South Carolina NORML, and I needed a bank account. Everybody's business, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, you still need a bank account because you still have bills to pay. We have to pay for our Zoom account. We have to pay for our website hosting and our website name. We have to pay for a post office box and all kinds of different things we have to pay for. And so you need a bank account to do that with. And the first bank that I went to was a credit union that I was already participating in on a private level. And I thought, well, I'll ask them if I can open up an account. And they hemmed and they hawed and they ran it by their legal department. And then they got back to me and they started asking questions and then more questions. And finally, the one question they said, if you would ever get a donation from a legal cannabis business, would you accept it? Yeah, sure. Oh, well, then we can't have you as a customer because you'd be accepting marijuana monies. Oh. So I think at the time there was that one bank that was like making up fake accounts just to try Chase or something like that. I forget which one it was. And somebody says, go there. And before that, I had actually tried someplace else, which was the BBT. And BBT did give me an account. So we were able to get a checking account. We were able to pay our bills. We are not selling cannabis products in any way, shape, or form. We are advocates. And it's kind of the price of talking. Secondly, on that is our website is hosted by a Shopify account. That gave us the ability to put some products out there, our t-shirts, our memberships. I think the dog tags that we were promoting a little while back, the board games, all that stuff that we have out there to try and raise funds. And we were utilizing the Shopify transaction method. And we had also attached our PayPal account to it. And after a while, I forget if it was after the first year or so, Shopify came back and said, we can't let us use our merchant processing anymore because you are a marijuana related business. You can go through these other third parties and attach them to your account and make it work. I'm like, I'm not going to worry about it because PayPal was still allowing us to process. And so basically, when you go onto our Shopify, our website, and you want to either join or make a payment, it processes through our PayPal and not through Shopify's merchant services, because we were banned from using it because we talk about marijuana, because we support decriminalization, we support full legalization, and to them that is promoting illegal activity. We get a lot of that from, matter of fact, from Facebook. As many of you probably know, you're allowed to advertise on Facebook. We're not really allowed to advertise on Facebook because we talk about marijuana. And they say, oh, you're promoting illegal drug use. No, we're promoting decriminalization and legalization of a healing herb, is the way I look at it. But so those are three examples on how the Safe Banking Act would help some of those people. And I see a lot of folks that are in CBD businesses talk about the same kind of thing. They're promoting CBD, perfectly legal under the 2018 hemp bill. legalized here in South Carolina in 2016. But still people are having trouble with merchant services because they're dealing with a cannabis product. The hemp papers. The hemp papers, although we can sell them, we have them on our Shopify site. Our Shopify site is linked to Facebook shopping, and they won't allow the hemp papers in the shop. They've actually told us no on our t-shirts for a number of times. I had to appeal it, because our old ones had a pot leaf on them. A couple of different things, and I'd have to appeal it. So why not? Who won the Dope Man game? I don't really want to out anybody necessarily. If they want to volunteer that, I don't have a problem. But I just, grandma bought some from us. Whose grandma? Your grandma? Cool. My mom's 96 and I've had her taking CBD, but I don't think even if medical was legal, well, it's legal in Florida where she is, but I don't think she would attempt it. I hate to admit it, but my mother is an opiate addict. And I don't want to say, she's a street junkie. She is a prescription opioid addict. The doctors have had her on managed pain care for over 2 decades, I would say. She even tells me one time, she said to her doctor, well, when am I going to get the high from this stuff? Aren't I supposed to get a high from this stuff? And they're like, I'm like, they said, how long have you been taking it? No, you're not going to feel high. You've built up that kind of a tolerance over the years of taking her prescribed amounts. She does regularly get tested. And I think partially the tests are for 2 things. I know Richardson, that she has won the game. So yeah, since she's open to telling you, she's the one that won the game from our drawing at the membership drive. But yes, they test my mother regularly, I think for 2 reasons. One is to make sure she's taking it and she's not like showing that she has less in her system, because I think one of the fears that they have is that people are hoarding them and then selling them on the streets. And I think the other thing, and I'm not sure of this, they may be testing at times for cannabis. She's talked to her doctor and they said no, but she's worried that if she would take cannabis products and test positive for it, they would stop her from getting her opioid pain medications. Oh, the grandma from the Soda City Market that came up to us that day. Oh, she was awesome. I should call her the grandma, but to have somebody my age or she may have even been older come up and purchase some of our rolling papers. She was the only one to pick up some of the hemp rolling papers. What are those made from? 100% hemp. Oh yes, I'll take some of those. She was awesome. Thank you for reminding me of that one, Josh. Yeah, she. That made my day, to be quite honest with you. That was one of the ones that I really was kind of excited about. That was the only pack of hemp papers that anybody got that day, and it was from someone that was, like I say, at least my age, maybe a little bit older, and bought them specifically because they were made from hemp. Loved it. Thought it was freaking awesome. And that's another thing. I know our budgets are tight right now because I just spent a bunch of money on brochures and things. But Josh, if you see an event that you want to do, like I say, if you find a freebie like I did with the Bohemian Bull here on their 420 event, let me know and we'll try and reach out to them and see if we can get you involved in something up there to do some tabling, hand out brochures and such like that. Oh man, I've been rambling. I see it's after 8 o'clock already. I hope I haven't bored anybody too much. Y'all are still here, so I don't think I have. Anybody else have anything they want to kind of throw in tonight? I'm going to then throw out a couple of things there on what's kind of going on. As I mentioned, we are starting to move forward with a Decrim Charleston project. We're starting to form right now it's a loose coalition I'm trying to get some other organizations to participate with us. We do have the ACLU of South Carolina firmly on board. I reached out to Marijuana Policy Project, and they will be joining us after the governor signs S-150 into law. At the moment, Marijuana Policy Project focus is specifically on medical here in South Carolina. And they don't want to, as many of the medical advocates, they don't want to openly associate with NORML, because the legislators know that NORML is pushing for more than just medical. We're, again, fighting for the civil rights and civil liberties of consumers. So we want decriminalization, and eventually we want the right for adults to make that choice on their own without fear of being prosecuted. So they will be joining us down the line. I have recently reached out to SSDP here at the College of Charleston. SSDP is Students for Sensible Drug Policy. SSDP's is looking more to decrimp all drugs. And I can't argue that. I think all drugs should be a medical issue and not a criminal issue. But again, I haven't heard back, and I don't even know who's running the group over at College of Charleston at the moment. I did last year. It's usually a senior. I believe that senior's graduated and moved on. And so I don't know who's running it, or even if the group is still running over there at the moment. So I'm still trying to reach out. I did also have a conversation earlier today with a representative from the Drug Policy Alliance. I believe they were from New York, because they were talking about they had just gotten 6 inches of snow, and it was beautiful, they said. And I'm like, I moved to Charleston to get away from snow. Thank you very much. But although they won't necessarily be joining the coalition because they're not a local group and they don't have a local presence, they were definitely there for us as a resource. They're going to be actually sending me some information on some decrim ordinances that they've helped move forward in other areas, other states, as a sort of template starting point for us to start drafting what we think might be a good ordinance for, or at least an option for an ordinance here in the city of Charleston. As I explained to the person I was talking with there today, I really like what much of Ohio is doing with their no fine, no time, no court cost ordinances that are promoted by the gosh, I'm going to forget it again. Sensible. I don't think it's the sensible decriminalization. I'm forgetting the name of it now. I'm blanking. I did with her too. Yeah, I'm still not finding it. But they're doing a no fine, no time, no court cost type thing. I have had a couple of people say, well, you know, what about the children? What happens if somebody is a minor, gets caught with simple possession? Don't you want to have some sort of language in there to address that? Suggestion would be that suggestions that were made to me were something like either, you know, drug school or X number of hours of community service. I really don't like the idea of drug school. I'm not really opposed to community service. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to look into a little bit more on how we can get involved in being on the list of organizations that are suggested when people are made to do community service. We did have somebody do their community service with us a couple of years ago. They had been charged in Colorado, and they were asked if they could do their community service back at home in South Carolina. When they got here, they contacted us, and we were told that the only requirement was that they had to do community service with a nonprofit. So we filled out whatever paperwork they needed us to fill out, and they sent that off to their, I guess, probation officer or something out in Colorado. And the Colorado office said, Sure, you can do your community service with NORML. So I think that would actually be not a necessarily bad thing if a young person got caught with a simple possession and had to do community service, if they could do that community service advocating for reforming marijuana laws. So maybe I was just in it for a little bit of free volunteerism, but not really. I think it would be a fair option. With those comments, I am sort of looking for some other participation. I've been asked, have I reached out to any criminal justice reform groups in the area or any churches? And we are starting to do that. But if you can kind of think of any organizations in the Charleston area that you know are supportive of criminal justice reform and or cannabis legalization, decriminalization, please pass their information on to me and I will reach out to them and see if we can get them involved. The Sensible Movement Coalition, finally, I found it, is the name of the organization. They had actually drafted our petitions a couple of years back when we were trying to do the voter-initiated ballot initiative. And that was right before COVID hit, so we really didn't get out. We really weren't able to get out and start collecting signatures. Excuse me. For Charleston itself, we would need about 15,000 signatures from registered voters that are residents of the city of Charleston specifically. And that's a big task. And that's why we've kind of rolled that back a little bit and instead decided that we're going to start evaluating our city council members here and targeting going directly to city council and see if we can get 1 or 2 city council members to sponsor a decrim ordinance here in Charleston to start. And that's the way we're going to address it then as we move on to other municipalities in the future.
Can you get signatures from polling sites? I mean, like voting sites? Are you allowed to do that?
Probably not right on the polling site. I think there's like a 200-yard buffer, 200-foot, whatever the buffer is that you need to stay outside of. If you're outside of that line, sure, you could collect signatures at that, but then that would only be necessarily on election days. And you'd have to have somebody at each site like all day. And I don't know. And I think the voter turnout is many times about 17, 18%, depending on the election. Generals are higher, primaries and special elections are much, much lower. A number of times I've worked the polls in the past couple of years. Doesn't really make you a lot of money, but you can make, I don't know, I think 120, 140 bucks or something like that for a nice long 12+ hour day. So again, you're probably making minimum wage in the long run, but it's that civic duty kind of reason why I was really involved. And there were days we would sit, or there were some election days, especially on special elections, where we sat there. And I think the one day I was there for about 12 hours. It was a special election for one office. And I think we had like 50 people total show up at that particular precinct. What I've seen them doing in Ohio really is they try and just get out on the streets and have their signs and get people to pull over. We did that a couple of times. A good example is there was a Rock 98 radio station concert that we were invited to participate in. We set up a table there. We started trying to collect signatures. We had 3 different petitions going, one for the city of Charleston, one for Folly Beach, and the city of Folly Beach, and one for the town of James Island. And you had to be a resident of each one of those communities to sign that particular petition. And the event that I was at happened to be in North Charleston. So first off, it gets very loud at a concert. For me to try and talk to people was really, really challenging. And I would say to them, do you live in Charleston? Are you a registered voter in the city of Charleston? And so many of them say yes. And after they'd sign and put their address down, I'd look and they were from Goose Creek, or they were from North Charleston, or they were from not specifically the city of Charleston and or Folly or James Island. And that's the challenge with some of those initiative petitions, is they have to be a registered voter in that specific community. And again, we've even did it in downtown Charleston. Do you live in the city of Charleston? Yes. And then I'd see they were from North Charleston, or they were from an unincorporated part of Charleston County that wasn't necessarily within the city. Or a good example is I live specifically in the city of Charleston on James Island, but James Island is split up kind of like a patchwork quilt. And there's many times where you could have one property, but it's a city of Charleston, right next door across the street is the town of James Island. And then kind of catty-cornered on the other side is unincorporated county property. So you've got three different kind of municipalities on this one area. And if you ever try and look at a map of the outline of the city of Charleston, there's not a really good clean cut lines. Good example. Yep. Josh is in Charleston or Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is its own city, but he would have said, yeah, I live in Charleston. And that's exactly what we're getting. And if they weren't specifically registered in the city of Charleston, registered to vote in the city of Charleston, these petitions actually have to go to the voter board, and the voter board goes through and they confirm or cross off, yeah, all the signatures on that list based on their address. Are they registered? Is it legible? That kind of stuff. And yeah, we were getting a good number that weren't necessarily City of Charleston on our City of Charleston petitions. I always thought Folly Beach would be an easy one, because in Folly Beach, we really only need 400 signatures on a petition to get it on the ballot there. The problem with Folly Beach is it's a municipality of, I think, 3,200 people-ish, something like that, that explodes to about 21,000 people in the tourist season. And the tourist season seems to be getting longer, or the non-tourist season gets to be shorter. Basically, we would have to hustle out big time from maybe mid-December to mid-February to get those 400 signatures down on Folly Beach. And another example, a lot of people that might be residents and registered voters in Folly Beach, they move out of their homes and they go rent someplace a little bit further inland so that they can rent their Folly Beach home out for amazing amounts of money to pay their mortgage for the rest of the year. And then they kind of move back in the off season and don't live full time in their homes. So finding those actual residents in Folly can be a challenge, especially when tourist season kicks in. It's really a challenge. Yep, Kyle mentioned here, if we can get Nancy Mace onto one of our calls, that would be amazing. I think we've got a good shot at it. Like I said, I've reached out, and now that I've found actually her district director's contact information here on my desk, I'm going to actually send the request directly to him as well, and see if we can get her on the program some night. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully in the next month or so. Hey, isn't 420 a Wednesday? Maybe we can actually get her on 420. That's a Wednesday. We'll have a cannabis conversation on 420. And I don't think we're going to make it a 420 party. Maybe we can get a real nice guest like Representative Mason to talk about her marijuana state reform act. All right. Let me just kind of look back real quick and see if there's anything else I missed in comments. Yep, Kyle's right. Oh, a federal marijuana legalization bill may receive a House floor vote next week. Source says nothing has been officially announced. Oh, I'm going to click on that link. I'll have to go look at that. And that just came out 2 hours ago, I see, from Marijuana Policy Project. Oh, the MORE Act. Okay. I will look into that a little bit more, and I'll share some information on our social media pages on that. Yes, and as we mentioned earlier, that Nancy Mace is expecting a hearing on her bill with no quid pro quo to vote for the MORE Act, and is what she said in that particular article. I think that the link was up above. Okay, I'm kind of burning out here a little bit. I see we've been at it for almost an hour and a half. So I'm going to start to wrap it up unless anybody else has anything they want to throw in. What about the parents I see up there? How about let parents be parents? Okay. Yeah, Nancy's not hard to watch. All righty, guys. Oh, one last thing I have been trying to reach out. I was talking about building our coalition. I had never heard of RAMP before. And it was suggested to me that I try and reach out to RAMP, see if RAMP has a South Carolina chapter. They do not. RAMP is Republicans Against Marijuana Prohibition. They're pretty active in Texas, and I know they have a couple of other state chapters. I'm going to reach out to their national level folks and see if maybe there's some way that they can kind of get involved with us here as well. Again, being a trifecta Republican controlled state, the Senate, the House, and our governor are all Republican. I think that as much support from the Republican Party on decriminalization and legalization would be beneficial to our cause. And I don't know why I keep blanking about the other group that we had been working with earlier in the year. I have to go back and find that info because I've kind of blanked after they weren't interested in participating in our press conference because we had Joe Cunningham there and they didn't want it to look like they were supporting Joe Cunningham's race. And I understand that. And actually, when Joe Cunningham agreed to participate in our press conference back in February, I was kind of expecting them to back out of participation. And I understand the reasoning why. I've also been warned, they're Koch brother funded, and I'm aware of that. But again, we would be foolish not to try and collaborate with an organization that supports full legalization of cannabis and has backing from what is the majority party in our state, although not necessarily any actual people in our state. There are representatives in our state that I'm aware of, except, of course, we know Tom Davis. But all righty, Kyle saying good night, and I'm going to kind of follow up and do the same thing. Don't forget to meet us back here again next Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have something exciting news for you by then. Also, remember to keep an eye on our social media at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Again, we are a little bit more Facebook heavy. Don't forget to visit our website at scnormal.org. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page and click on that link to sign up for our newsletters. And otherwise, besides that, I'm going to say we'll see you next week and have yourselves a great night, folks. Bye-bye now.